Captain Ethan Blake's body drifted aimlessly through the cold, dark emptiness of space. His ship had been hit hard in the battle with the Galactic Council's fleet, and he had barely managed to escape the destruction. Now, unconscious and lost, he was at the mercy of the void. The battle had been brutal, but even as his senses slipped into unconsciousness, he knew the worst was yet to come. The last thing he remembered before blacking out was his ship being torn apart, the emergency lights flickering, and then nothing. When Ethan's eyes finally fluttered open, the first thing he noticed was the oppressive silence. He wasn't floating in the endless dark of space anymore. He was surrounded by cold, metallic walls, and the smell of unfamiliar chemicals and technology filled the air. His body felt heavy, his head pounding from the crash, and his limbs felt stiff. He struggled to sit up, confusion clouding his thoughts. Where was he? What had happened? As he slowly gained his bearings, his eyes scanned the surroundings. He was inside some sort of alien prison, a high-tech cell aboard a massive warship. The walls were smooth, silver, and adorned with strange symbols and screens he couldn't understand. A soft, glowing blue light illuminated the space, but there was no warmth to it. Everything about this place screamed advanced technology, far beyond anything humanity had ever developed. The cells around him held various alien species, none of which he recognized. Some were humanoid, others were more monstrous, with multiple limbs or unusual features. Ethan tried to remember how he got here, but his thoughts were scattered. His mind raced with the image of the Galactic Council's ships, a coalition of alien civilizations that saw humans as little more than insects, weak, primitive, and insignificant. They had always looked down on humanity, and their ruthless ambition had led to countless conflicts. Now, somehow, he had ended up in their custody. As he tried to gather his strength, he realized that his uniform was gone, replaced by a simple jumpsuit. His communication device was missing, and he had no weapon, no way of defending himself. Every instinct in him screamed that he needed to escape, but there was no immediate way out. And then, as if on cue, the door to his cell slid open with a hiss, and a group of alien guards stepped inside. They were tall, towering over him, with sharp features and dark, glowing eyes. Their bodies were covered in dark, armored plating that hummed with energy, and their movements were precise, almost mechanical. They stared down at him, their expressions unreadable. Human, one of them spoke in a low, guttural voice, its tone laced with condescension. "You are an intruder in our domain. You will be interrogated." Ethan clenched his fists, his mind working overtime. He couldn't let them break him. They had no idea who they were dealing with. He had fought in enough wars, faced enough enemies, to know how to survive. He was human, resourceful, relentless, and determined to never give up. But the problem now was that he had no idea how to communicate with them. Their language was foreign, completely alien to his ears, and he couldn't even make out a single word they were saying. One of the aliens raised a strange device that looked like a mix of a scanner and a weapon. It emitted a low mechanical hum, and Ethan's heart skipped a beat as he realized it was some sort of interrogation tool. He tried to say something, anything, but his words were lost. The alien's language was too complex, too foreign for him to even attempt. And worse, they seemed to be expecting him to understand them. "Why don't you answer?" the alien leader demanded, his voice growing more menacing. Ethan's frustration grew. He gritted his teeth, knowing that his silence would only make things worse. They wanted answers, but he had none to give, not in their language anyway. As the aliens prepared to activate their device, a flicker of desperation sparked in his chest. He couldn't just sit there. He had to fight back. But how? He was at their mercy, trapped inside a cage, surrounded by enemies. And then, without warning, one of the aliens pointed the device at Ethan's head and pressed a button. A soft whirring sound filled the room, and Ethan felt a strange sensation, almost as if his mind was being pried open. The device was reading his thoughts, trying to pull information from his brain. But then something unexpected happened. Ethan, in that moment of sheer desperation, took a deep breath. A spark of understanding ignited within him. His mind raced, and without fully knowing why, the words began to spill out. The aliens froze. Their dark eyes widened in shock. They exchanged confused glances, unsure of what they had just heard. The leader's cold expression faltered for a moment, replaced with something resembling disbelief. Ethan repeated himself, this time more confidently, speaking their language fluently, though he had never been taught it. His words were smooth, crisp, and he was able to form sentences with ease. The shock was palpable. The room fell silent as the alien guards and the leader stood frozen in place. The language barrier that had separated them, one of the greatest obstacles between humans and the Galactic Council, was gone. The leader spoke again, his voice low but filled with astonishment. How do you know our tongue? Ethan didn't know the answer, but there was no way he could explain it. He just did. His mind had somehow absorbed the language, almost as if his subconscious had unlocked it in that moment of fear and desperation. It was as if the universe had given him the means to speak to his captors, and he wasn't about to waste it. The leader took a step forward, his glowing eyes studying Ethan as though he were a rare specimen. This is impossible, he muttered. Humans cannot speak our language. They are too primitive. Ethan smirked. Guess I'm not as primitive as you think. The alien's eyes narrowed in anger. It wasn't just surprise now. It was suspicion. The air in the room thickened with tension. Ethan's words, spoken with confidence and ease, had done something unexpected. They had piqued the interest of the Galactic Council. A human, a species they had long underestimated, had just proven that humanity was capable of far more than they had ever imagined. The interrogation shifted. No longer did the aliens see him as just a prisoner to be questioned. Now they were wondering about him, about humanity, and what else they might be capable of. They were no longer certain they were dealing with a weak, inferior species, and that uncertainty, that crack in their understanding, was enough to turn the tide. For the first time, the Galactic Council realized something unsettling. Humanity was not as helpless as they had always believed. Ethan Blake, a single human soldier, had become the symbol of what humanity could achieve. Something no one, not even the mighty Galactic Council, could ignore. And with that revelation, the battle lines had been drawn. The suspense had only just begun. The room was thick with tension, the air heavy with disbelief. The Galactic Council, a coalition of the most powerful and advanced alien species, had never encountered anything like this before. No human had ever spoken their language. Yet here was Ethan Blake, a lone human soldier, speaking their language as if he had always known it. The shock on their faces was undeniable. But beneath that surprise, there was something more dangerous brewing: doubt. The council members, all hailing from various planets with millennia of technological and cultural advancement, exchanged uneasy glances. They had long considered humans to be primitive, beneath their notice, easily conquered and controlled. But now, something had happened that they couldn't explain. How could this human, a species they deemed as nothing more than a pest, speak their language? The very foundation of their perception of humanity was being shaken, and that uncertainty had already begun to spread like wildfire through the ranks. One of the council members, an alien with a tall, slender frame and pale blue skin, stepped forward. His voice was calm but tinged with suspicion. "Explain yourself, human," he demanded. "How do you speak our tongue? You were not taught it. Humans are not known for such capabilities. What trickery is this?" Ethan, still lying on the cold floor of the alien prison, looked up at the alien leader with a mix of defiance and amusement. His eyes burned with the same fire that had kept him alive in countless battles, a fire that refused to be extinguished by their underestimation. "Trickery," he repeated, his voice smooth and steady. "You think this is some sort of trick. Maybe you've underestimated us humans. Maybe we're not as primitive as you think. The council members exchanged murmurs. Ethan's calmness in the face of their interrogation only seemed to infuriate them more. They had expected fear, submission, or confusion. But here was a human who seemed neither afraid nor impressed by their superior technology or status. It was clear that this one man had just broken their perception of humanity, and they needed answers. The blue-skinned alien took a step back, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Enough of this insolence," he said, his voice cold. "You will prove yourself then. We will test you." Ethan raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. He had no intention of being anyone's test subject, but there was no way out of this. They were already suspicious, and his only chance now was to outwit them. "Go ahead," he said, his voice flat. "Test me. I'm sure I'll pass." The council members moved with precision, their glowing eyes fixed on him. A small group of technicians stepped forward, carrying devices that hummed with alien energy. They didn't waste time with further questions. The council had already decided that they would use their most advanced technologies to break Ethan. Their confidence was unshakable. They had every reason to believe that their superior tools and strategies would quickly deal with him. First, they brought out a cloaking device, a small, sleek device that shimmered in the air. The moment they activated it, Ethan felt the room shift. He could no longer see the aliens standing before him. Their outlines were hidden in the flickering distortions of space. This, they thought, would disorient him, confuse him, and make him vulnerable. But Ethan had been in the field long enough to recognize the signs of an ambush. Without missing a beat, he closed his eyes, reached out with his senses, and began to focus. A grin spread across his face as he hacked into their cloaking system, using his rudimentary understanding of technology. He didn't need their advanced knowledge. He only needed to think like a soldier, to see the patterns that their tech couldn't mask. Moments later, their cloaking device shut down, and the aliens were visible again, their smug expressions fading into stunned silence. The council members froze, their confidence suddenly wavering. A human, this human, had just outsmarted their most advanced technology. They weren't used to this. They had expected the human to be nothing more than a powerless prisoner, but now they were looking at someone who was capable of challenging them on their own turf. Ethan, now standing tall, crossed his arms with a cocky smirk. "You call that a test? Is that all you've got?" The council leader hissed in frustration, his glowing eyes flashing with anger. "You will pay for your insolence. This will not go unpunished." But even as he spoke, there was a flicker of doubt in his voice. They had never encountered a human like this. The Galactic Council had always believed they were invincible, that no species could challenge their might. But now, with each passing moment, they were beginning to realize that they had been wrong. Determined to put Ethan in his place, the Council decided to escalate the situation. They ordered their AI assistants, advanced, sentient machines capable of strategizing and reacting faster than any living creature, to confront him. The machines were programmed to analyze every possible outcome, to calculate the most effective ways to subdue and capture their target. They were perfect for combat. But even these AI assistants underestimated the ingenuity of a human soldier. As they closed in on Ethan, their cold, mechanical voices issuing commands to capture him, he acted swiftly. He ducked and rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the first strike. The robotic soldiers followed suit, but they were slow, their calculations easily outpaced by Ethan's unpredictable movements. He had no problem using the environment to his advantage, throwing objects to block their sensors, creating distractions to buy himself time. In the chaos of the battle, Ethan's mind raced, constantly adjusting to the changing circumstances. His training had taught him to read the battlefield, to think several moves ahead. He had no superhuman abilities, no advanced weapons, just the quick thinking and adaptability that humanity had always relied on to survive. One by one, the AI assistants malfunctioned as Ethan managed to hack into their systems. It wasn't easy. These machines were built for warfare, after all, but Ethan had a soldier's instinct for understanding their weaknesses. With a final push, he disabled the last eye, and it collapsed to the floor, its once gleaming frame now useless. The robotic soldiers had been neutralized, and the council members, watching from their observation deck, were now visibly shaken. Ethan stood tall, breathing heavily, but with an undeniable sense of triumph in his eyes. The power dynamics had shifted. He had proven that humans were not as weak as the Galactic Council had believed. Frustration and uncertainty began to spread among the council members. They had underestimated this human, and now they had to consider a terrifying possibility. Humanity was more than capable of challenging them. They could no longer view Earth and its people as a mere footnote in the galaxy. Ethan Blake had proven that. The Galactic Council's confidence had been cracked, and now they were left with one lingering question. What else could humans do? The leader of the council, visibly disturbed, turned to the others. "Send in the elite warriors," he ordered, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "We will see if this human can survive against the best of our kind." The door slid open, and a new wave of elite alien warriors stormed into the room. These were the best of the best, trained in hand-to-hand combat, skilled in tactics, and equipped with advanced weapons. But Ethan, battered and bruised, stood his ground. He wasn't about to let them take him down without a fight. The tension had reached its peak, and now the final test was about to begin. As the warriors charged, Ethan's heart raced. He didn't know how this would end, but he was ready. For the first time, humanity's fate rested on the shoulders of a single soldier, Ethan Blake, and he would fight until the very end. The sound of clashing metal and the whirring of alien technology echoed through the corridors of the massive warship. It was chaos, gunfire, explosions, and the heavy footsteps of soldiers rushing to maintain control. But amidst the mayhem, Princess Lyra stood still, her emerald eyes locked on the scene unfolding before her. She had always believed in the superiority of her people, the Galactic Council. They were powerful, unchallenged, and had crushed countless civilizations throughout the galaxy without a second thought. But what she witnessed now shook her to the core. There, in the midst of the battle, was Ethan Blake, a human soldier. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, he fought with an intensity and resolve that she had never seen before. His movements were sharp, calculated, and relentless. The way he handled himself, how he fought against the Council's forces with every ounce of strength, made Lyra question everything she had ever known. How could someone so seemingly weak stand up to the might of the Galactic Council? As Ethan fought on, avoiding attacks and taking down enemies with precision, Princess Lyra found herself watching him with a sense of fascination. She had always thought of humans as primitive, but this human was different. He didn't just fight to survive. He fought because he believed in something greater. Lyra had heard stories of how humans would unite in the face of adversity, how their survival was rooted in their willingness to fight together. But seeing it firsthand, seeing the raw strength in Ethan's actions, moved her in ways she hadn't expected. For a brief moment, the battle seemed to slow around them. Ethan, noticing the princess's gaze, took a chance and spoke to her, his voice calm but filled with determination. "You don't understand, do you?" he said. "Humans fight not because we want to die, but because we refuse to let others dictate our fate. We'll never bow to anyone. Not the Council, not the AI, not anyone. We fight because it's the only thing we know how to do." Lyra stood silent for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. She had grown up surrounded by the arrogance of the Council, believing that their reign was absolute and unquestionable. But here was Ethan, a human, standing before her and defying everything she had been taught to believe. There was something undeniable in his voice, in the fire behind his words. It wasn't just bravery. It was the strength of a people who had been through hell and survived, who had been beaten down and still stood tall. I didn't know," Lyra admitted quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "I've always believed that we were the superior race. But now, I see that maybe we were wrong." Ethan's eyes softened for a moment as he met her gaze. There was no hatred in him, no animosity toward her or her people. He understood her position. She had been raised in a system that had shaped her view of the universe. But now, in this moment, she was beginning to see the truth. Before they could continue their conversation, the harsh reality of the situation came crashing back. Bonner, one of Ethan's closest friends and fellow soldiers, was fighting beside him. Bonner was a big man, built like a tank, and had always been the one to step in when Ethan needed backup. But this time, it was different. Bonner saw an opportunity to protect Ethan, to buy him time to escape, but it would come at a great cost. The sound of Bonner's sacrifice hit Ethan hard. Bonner had thrown himself into the line of fire, taking down 2 of the Council's elite warriors before he was struck down. Ethan barely had time to process what had happened before he was forced to move on. There was no time for grief, no time to mourn. His friend was gone, and his mission wasn't over. The loss hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He had lost many soldiers in battle, but Bonner had been different. They had trained together, fought side by side for years. To lose him now, when they were so close to victory, was almost unbearable. But it wasn't the time to break down. He had to keep going. He had to survive, not just for himself but for Bonner, for all of his fallen comrades. As he pushed forward, a rage built inside him. Every step he took was for those he had lost, every move a tribute to their sacrifice. The intensity of his emotions fueled his fight. He had a new fire in him now, and he wasn't going to stop until the Council paid for what they had done. Bonner's death had only made him more determined to see this through. Meanwhile, Princess Lyra watched from a distance, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. She had seen countless battles in her life, but none like this. None where the stakes felt so personal. Watching Ethan fight, watching him lose his friend, something inside her began to change. She had always believed in the Council's ways, strong, unyielding, and unchallenged. But now, she was starting to question everything. Lyra had spent so many years in the Council's grip, never thinking for herself, always following orders. But in Ethan's eyes, she saw a different kind of strength. It was the strength that came from unity, from loyalty, and from the unbreakable bond of humanity. For the first time in her life, she wasn't sure she agreed with the Council's mission. As the battle raged on, Lyra couldn't stand by and do nothing. She had to act. Quietly, she reached out to one of the guards assigned to keep watch over Ethan, using her position to secretly aid him. She supplied him with information, helping him navigate through the warship, offering him tools and supplies that would give him an edge. She was taking a risk, but for the first time, she didn't care. Ethan, for his part, was too focused on survival to notice the princess's growing change of heart. But Lyra knew that this was just the beginning. Her alliance with him would set the stage for something much bigger. An alliance that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. As Ethan finally made his way deeper into the warship, heading toward his final objective, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The anger that had driven him to this point was still there, but now it was mixed with a sense of uncertainty. The Council had underestimated humanity, and they were starting to pay the price. But now, it seemed like something even more powerful than their advanced technology was at play. The growing bond between him and Lyra, a bond that could reshape the future of their conflict. With Bonner's sacrifice weighing heavily on his mind, and Lyra's unexpected support at his back, Ethan's resolve to fight and win had never been stronger. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about every human who had ever been overlooked, every person who had been told they were too weak to survive. They would fight for their place in the galaxy, together. The plan was set, the stakes were high, and the clock was ticking. Ethan Blake, the human soldier who had already defied the odds and shaken the Galactic Council to its core, now found himself in the heart of the enemy's warship. He wasn't alone. By his side stood a small but determined group of allies, including Princess Lyra, the once loyal member of the Council who had now turned against her people. Ethan, Lyra, and their team of prisoners fellow soldiers and rebels, had one goal: escape. They knew the Council would stop at nothing to keep them locked away, but they also knew that if they could reach the command center of the warship, they could not only escape but strike a blow to the Council's operations. In the silence of the cold, metallic halls, Ethan's mind raced as he reviewed the plan in his head. They had infiltrated the heart of the warship by using his knowledge of the Council's language and technology, secrets he had learned during his time imprisoned. It was a risky move, but it was the only option they had. Their first obstacle: a network of robotic guards designed to protect the most sensitive areas of the warship. The metal beasts stood motionless in their stations, awaiting any signs of intruders. But Ethan had studied their movements carefully. With his team at his back, they crept silently through the shadows, careful not to trigger the motion sensors or alert the guards. As they neared the command center, a sudden blast of red light flashed across the hallway. The first robot had detected them. In an instant, the warship's corridors were filled with the sound of screeching metal and the whirring of weaponized robots locking onto their positions. Without hesitation, Ethan and his allies sprang into action. A cinematic action sequence unfolded, one that would have made even the most seasoned warriors proud. Ethan and his team fought fiercely, using every bit of training and resourcefulness they had. Close quarters combat was their only option, blades clashing, fists flying, and energy weapons firing with deadly precision. Ethan's eyes narrowed as a robotic guard lunged at him with a series of rapid strikes. He ducked, rolled, and then, with a swift motion, grabbed the robot's arm and twisted it until the metal structure snapped. The robot fell to the ground with a resounding crash. But they didn't have time to celebrate. More robots emerged from every direction, their red eyes glowing ominously as they advanced on the team. Lyra, still unsure of her place in all of this, fought alongside Ethan with surprising skill. She wielded alien technology she had brought with her, blades that glowed with energy, cutting through the enemy with ease. For the first time, Ethan saw Lyra not as the princess of a powerful alien race, but as an ally, someone who shared his desire for survival and victory. The tension escalated as the team moved through the warship, encountering more obstacles and enemies along the way. The once pristine, almost sterile halls of the warship were now a battlefield. The air was thick with the sound of explosions, the blinding flashes of energy blasts, and the shaking of the ship as it endured the intense firefight. Orbital bombardments could be seen through the large windows, huge explosions lighting up the sky as the Council's ships fired on each other. The stakes had never been higher. The deeper they ventured into the heart of the warship, the more dangerous their mission became. But Ethan was determined. He was no longer fighting just for survival. He was fighting for revenge, for justice, and for all the humans who had suffered at the hands of the Galactic Council. As they reached the command center, the resistance they faced intensified. The Council's elite forces, highly trained and equipped with the most advanced weaponry, were ready for them. Ethan's team, now battered and bruised, wasn't sure how much longer they could hold out, but they had come too far to stop now. And then came the turning point. Lyra, who had been struggling with her own emotions and divided loyalties, saw something that made her decision clear. As Ethan fought, as his anger and pain fueled his every move, Lyra couldn't stand by and watch her people destroy everything she had ever known. The Council's actions had pushed her to the edge, but now, watching Ethan, the human who had endured so much and fought so hard, she knew that she had to make a choice. She could no longer support the Council. In a moment of clarity, Lyra made her move. She turned her back on the Council's forces, and with a swift action, she disabled the control systems of the warship. The defense shields that had protected the command center flickered and then went offline, leaving the Council's elite forces vulnerable. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The prisoners, now armed with Lyra's help, stormed the command center. The rebellion inside the prison was no longer just a small-scale operation. It was a full-blown battle, one that pitted the underdogs, the humans, against the overwhelming might of the Galactic Council. Ethan, now driven by a newfound sense of purpose, led the charge. His eyes burned with a fierce determination as he moved through the battlefield, cutting down enemies with precision and speed. His soldiers followed his lead, their confidence growing as they saw how close they were to victory. With each strike, with each enemy that fell, they grew stronger, more united. For the first time, the humans weren't running from the council. They were fighting back, and they were winning. But the most emotional moment came when Lyra joined Ethan in the final stand. She had turned her back on everything she had known, everything she had been taught. She was no longer the princess of the Galactic Council. She was a fighter, a freedom fighter, standing shoulder to shoulder with the humans. Together, they fought to the end. The Council's forces, once so powerful and unyielding, now began to falter. Their morale shattered by the unexpected resistance. They could no longer hold their ground. The underdogs had become the victors, and the tide of battle was forever changed. In the chaos of the final battle, with explosions echoing and lasers cutting through the air, Ethan and Lyra shared a brief but powerful moment. They had come together against impossible odds, and now they were on the verge of victory. But this was only the beginning. The Galactic Council would never underestimate humanity again. And with that, the fate of the galaxy had changed. The final confrontation was approaching, and Ethan Blake could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on him. After everything he had fought for, his capture, the brutal interrogations, the escape, and the rebellion inside the Council's massive warship, he was now at the heart of the Galactic Council's stronghold. The stakes had never been higher. The fate of Earth, of humanity itself, rested on his shoulders. The Council's leaders, unwilling to accept defeat, had called upon their most powerful warriors to end Ethan's rebellion. These warriors were more than just highly trained soldiers. They were elite beings with advanced technology and battle strategies far beyond anything humans had ever encountered. Their mission was clear: stop Ethan and his allies at all costs. Ethan, however, was undeterred. The Council had underestimated humanity at every turn, and now they would learn just how wrong they were. His allies, including the former Council member Princess Lyra, were ready for the final battle. Together, they had fought their way through the warship, and now they would face the Council's greatest challenge, the final showdown in the heart of the Council's spaceship. As they entered the main chamber, the doors slammed shut behind them, and a cold, metallic silence filled the room. Then, the Council's leaders appeared, wielding their most advanced weapons, surrounded by eye-controlled turrets and robotic soldiers. The room buzzed with the sound of energy shields being powered up, and the tension was palpable. The battle began in an instant. A fast-paced, visually stunning battle unfolded, with explosions lighting up the room and energy blasts ricocheting off the walls. Advanced technology was everywhere: drones, cloaking devices, energy weapons, and robotic soldiers fought with deadly precision. But Ethan and his team had one thing the Council couldn't predict: the raw power of human determination. Ethan's leadership skills shone through as he directed his team with sharp focus. He didn't just fight for survival, he fought for the people of Earth, for the ones who had been oppressed by the Council for far too long. Humanity's strength, its courage, and its resilience were on full display as they battled the superior alien forces. One by one, the Council's warriors fell. Ethan, though outnumbered, fought with an intensity that matched the overwhelming odds against him. He used every bit of his training, his resourcefulness, and his knowledge of the Council's technology. But this was more than just a battle of physical strength. It was a battle of willpower. Ethan's will to survive and to protect humanity was a force the Council could not break. The room seemed to shake as eye-controlled turrets unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, targeting Ethan and his allies. But Ethan was quick, dodging and weaving through the chaos. With a single move, he disabled the turrets, turning their weapons against the Council's own soldiers. Lyra, fighting beside him, was equally determined, using her alien technology to protect Ethan and his team from the onslaught. But even as the Council's forces began to crumble, the true test of humanity's will was yet to come. The ultimate test arrived when the Council's most devastating weapon, the AI-controlled superweapon, was activated. A booming voice echoed through the warship's corridors as the countdown to destruction began. This weapon was capable of wiping out entire planets, and it was aimed directly at Earth. The AI that controlled the weapon was an advanced system, far more sophisticated than anything humanity had ever encountered. Ethan knew that if they didn't stop the weapon, Earth would be destroyed. The clock was ticking. The countdown was already in progress, and time was running out. In this moment of desperation, Ethan and Lyra joined forces. They had already proven their strength in battle, but this was different. This was a test of their intelligence, their teamwork, and their ability to outsmart the Council's greatest weapon. Together, they made their way to the control center of the superweapon, where the AI's core system was housed. The visuals here were intense. The countdown timer on the superweapon flashed red, ticking down relentlessly. Each second felt like an eternity as Ethan raced through the corridors, determined to save Earth. The stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just about defeating the Council. This was about saving humanity from annihilation. Ethan's heart raced as they reached the control room, where the AI's core system hummed with power. The superweapon was ready to fire, and Earth's survival was hanging by a thread. Lyra worked quickly, using her knowledge of the Council's technology to hack into the AI system. The tension in the room was unbearable as the countdown reached its final seconds. But then, just as all hope seemed lost, Ethan's voice rang out through the control room. With a final, desperate move, he deactivated the weapon's core system, stopping the countdown just in time. The room fell silent. Earth had been saved. The victory was hard-won, but it was undeniable. Humanity had triumphed, not through brute force alone, but through their ingenuity, their resilience, and their unshakable will to survive. As the Council's superweapon fell silent, the realization hit. The Galactic Council had been defeated by something they had never understood. Humanity, the very race they had underestimated, had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. Ethan and Lyra, now standing together in the heart of the Council's worship, exchanged a look of relief. They had done it. They had stopped the Council, saved Earth, and shown the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. With the superweapon disabled and the Council's forces in disarray, Ethan and Lyra made their escape. The warship, now in chaos, was crumbling around them. They knew their mission wasn't over. There would be more battles to fight, more enemies to face. But for now, they had won. The Galactic Council was in shambles, their once proud empire on the brink of collapse. And the humans, once thought to be weak and insignificant, had proven their strength, their intelligence, and their unwavering will to fight against all odds. The final confrontation was over, but the war for humanity's future had only just begun. After the dust had settled, and the final confrontation was over, the entire Galactic Council stood on the brink of collapse. What had once been a powerful empire, feared by many across the galaxy, was now crumbling. Their superweapons had been disabled, their most elite warriors had been defeated, and their control over the galaxy was slipping away. The message sent by Ethan Blake was clear and loud. Humans could no longer be underestimated. The Galactic Council's plans to dominate Earth were in ruins, shattered by a single human who refused to bow to their superior technology and oppressive rule. Word of Ethan's victory spread like wildfire across the galaxy, and in every corner of space, the once feared empire began to lose its grip. The Council had always believed that they could control Earth and its people, but they had learned a valuable lesson. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated. As the Council's power crumbled, so did their hold over countless worlds. They had ruled through fear, subjugating entire civilizations with their advanced technology and ruthlessness. But now, the spark of rebellion that Ethan had ignited had turned into a full-scale movement. Galactic alliances that once feared the Council began to break free, Emboldened by the humans' example, worlds once silenced by the councils might now stood up, ready to fight for their freedom. It was a turning point in the galaxy's history, one that would forever alter the balance of power. For Ethan, however, this was not a moment of rest. He had led the charge to save Earth, but the galaxy was still in chaos. Humanity had proven its worth, showing that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could stand tall. But there was still much to be done. The Council's remnants would not go down without a fight. Their defeat did not mark the end of their ambitions. They would regroup, rebuild, and perhaps even seek revenge. But for now, Ethan and his allies had proven that the human spirit could not be crushed. The story of Ethan's victory became a legend. Humanity's strength, its intelligence, and its unyielding will to survive became the stuff of stories told across the stars. The galaxy had witnessed the rise of a new force, one that had faced the most advanced civilizations and come out on top. Ethan was now a symbol of what humanity could achieve. His courage, leadership, and determination made him a hero not just on Earth, but across the galaxy. But the victory was not without its consequences. Humanity had suffered losses along the way, and while the Council's defeat was a victory for the good of all, the scars of war would remain. Earth would need time to heal, and the people of the galaxy would need time to rebuild what had been destroyed. But there was hope that the future could be better, that humanity could rise above the ashes and build a brighter tomorrow. As Ethan returned to Earth, the final scene of the story played out. The humans, once seen as weak and insignificant, were now preparing for future battles. They knew that the fight against oppression and tyranny was not over. More challenges would come, but they also knew that they could stand tall against any advanced civilization. The alien forces that had once seen humanity as nothing more than a small, insignificant species now had to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Lyra, the princess of the Galactic Council, had become an unexpected ally to humanity. Once a loyal member of the Council, she had been moved by Ethan's strength and the bond they had shared during their time together. Lyra had made the decision to stand with Earth, to learn from its people, and to help them prepare for the challenges ahead. Her defection from the Council marked a turning point not only for the story but for the future of the galaxy. She was no longer an enemy of humanity. She had chosen to be an ally, someone who would fight alongside Earth in the face of future threats. In the final moments of the story, Ethan and Lyra shared a look that spoke volumes. The battle was over, but the war for the galaxy's future was just beginning. Lyra's decision to stand with humanity was a testament to the power of unity and understanding. The good versus evil theme came full circle as the once oppressed humans rose up against the oppressive alien forces. Their strength, their resilience, and their refusal to give up had brought them victory. And with Lyra's newfound alliance, Earth had not only won the battle but had gained a powerful ally in the ongoing struggle for freedom. As the story drew to a close, the camera panned over the vast landscapes of Earth. Humanity's future was uncertain, but for the first time in history, they had a fighting chance. The Galactic Council's empire had crumbled, but the journey was far from over. Earth was no longer alone in the universe. They had proven their strength, and they would stand ready for whatever came next. The final lines echoed with hope, unity, and a promise for the future. The humans had shown that they would not back down, that they would fight for their survival, no matter the odds. The bright future ahead was now within reach, and humanity would face it together, with courage, determination, and the belief that no force, be it alien or technological, could ever crush their spirit. The story of Earth's victory was just the beginning of a new chapter in the galaxy, and with Ethan, Lyra, and the rest of humanity at the forefront, there was no telling what they could achieve. The universe had been forever changed, and the once small and insignificant humans had proven that they were a force that could not be ignored. Their future was bright, and their potential limitless. The good versus evil theme had come full circle, with humanity emerging victorious against impossible odds. The battle was over, but the war for a better future had only just begun.